What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. Today we're going to talk about Abby and Libby's case. I think we'll hang out first and see what the chat has to say. Curious to see what's on your minds. What's going on, Jill? Christine? Karen, good to see you. Barb, welcome in. Miss Dog Lover, what's up? Miss Joel. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Tuesday, April 1st. It's April Fool's Day. I was going to play a trick on you guys, and I was like, I decided against it. What's going on, CJK? Cheeks, what's going on? Got to head back to work in a few, but happy to see everyone. Hope you're having a great day. What's up, Night Shadow? How do you have a shadow at night? Maybe a little bit of moonlight? Karen says, I have always thought that KK had something to do with it, Anthony Shots. So I think Karen is referring to the poll question of the day, which reads, was Richard Allen a lone opportunistic killer or working with others to target and lure Abby and Libby? Right now, the room is divided between Lone Wolf and the Anthony Shots theory. I think the scariest part about it all is the fact that we're so unsure about it. You know, 2 girls were murdered, and we don't have anything that explains exactly what happened. Yet there's a man who's been convicted. He's in prison. He's facing 130 years, depending on what happens with his appeal. And most people are just happy to accept it. Like, all right, close the books. You know, we can finally start to forget about the Delphi case. Yeah, but what really happened? Oh, doesn't matter. They got Richard Allen. He did it. He did it alone. You know, kind of like when you put your fingers in your ears and you're like, la, 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 la. I can't hear you. La, la, la. That's what most people do. I wish that I could do that. What's up, Diamonds? Barb says, I attended several days of the trial, so I'm curious to hear what people have to say about this case. Well, with you attending several days of the trial, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Welcome in, Lizzie. That I'm not sure of, Lizzie. Some transcripts would be nice. Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting, Barb, to hear those phone confessions. I mean, I feel like at some point Kathy gave up on Richard Allen. Like, fuck this guy. I'm just going to have him do what's best for me. which is keep your damn mouth shut, deny as much as you can, and you'll be lucky if I write you a letter. Kind of damage control. Like, I did it, right? Like, shut up. We all know that you did it, but you're going to keep your mouth shut. That's the least you can do for me after everything you've just done. You're going to tell them that you're sick. You never meant to confess. And your defense team's going to exploit that and say that it's because you've been in solitary. Hey, what's up, Mark? I don't know if hopefully I got it, Mark. Thank you. I'm sure I did. If YouTube charged your card or whatever, it'll probably show up on the back end somewhere, but I really appreciate that. Good to see you, by the way. J Ray, what's up? Return the Diamond says, I've always felt the information we need to get the full picture was on the damaged marathon footage. Yeah, it's very strange. You have detectives like Vito, almost in the same breath. They say, well, we couldn't attach Keegan Klein to this crime because we investigated, all of their devices. There was no connection between the devices at Richard Allen's home and Keegan Klein's. We went back, we looked, there was nothing. We went and we investigated all the people that we could find that knew them, and we couldn't find a connection. Not to mention, Keegan Klein's phone was at his grandmother's house or in Peru, actively. So therefore, they can't do anything with the Keegan Klein stuff. But in that same breath, he says, oh, and Keegan Klein did search the Marathon gas station in Delphi that day. We never could figure that out, but that is a fact. It's like they know he's connected. Everybody knows Keegan Klein and the Anthony shots is connected to the Delphi murders. But you can't go around saying that in a legal forum without proof, because then it diminishes your current case or whatever evidence you might have against Richard Allen. If they stepped in that courtroom and said, yes, we believe that Keegan Klein and Richard Allen are connected and they were using the Anthony Shots account. Okay, we'll prove it. Well, I don't have any proof, even though we spent the majority of the 6.5 years investigating that angle, right? They didn't even announce Anthony Shots until 4 years into the investigation. So you're telling me you spent all the way up until the first 4 years of this investigation looking into Anthony Shots and the connection between that profile and Abby and Libby's death. And I'm supposed to just ignore that because you failed? That's a hard one. Hey, Charles, I think I missed you, but I can answer 2 of those questions with just a baseball bat and a bit of time. Hey, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. Charles, trust me, people have been bugging Travis Trexler. And Keegan Klein's buddy Dirk. Because at some point, Keegan Klein was connected to the Trexler Wi-Fi. Huh? Maybe it wasn't Keegan Klein. Maybe it was Trexler. Good to see you, Jody. It's very interesting that KK's phone was in Peru that day. Where was Richard Allen's phone again? Oh, yeah. But he said he was where? I mean, it is very interesting that you have Richard Allen in Peru the morning of the murders. Oh, there was something I was going to show you guys. It was part of another live stream I was going to do, but I just canceled that one. Give me a moment. So I think the conversation started with Libby's account being hacked, which could be nothing. It could just be some random thing, some kind of a bot, some kind of overseas hacking operation. But this is very different to me. So somebody on May 19th, 2021, around 8:30 p.m., hacked Libby's account. They put this strange message on here. Well, I had forgotten all about this until the trial of Richard Allen, where he mentions, I think he said bear claw or bear paw. I think it's been confirmed that he said bear claw. And I don't know why, but the moment I read that, it brought me back to this. And this comment doesn't make any sense. The Shia, the mid 14th century, caused the Little Bighorn National Monument in the past. So I was wondering if it could be a cipher, perhaps. I did run it through some AI programs, and they didn't find anything. But I did find something interesting. So the Battle of Little Bighorn is in Montana. And the only thing that I could find is a case that tied Montana, Las Vegas, Bear Claw, and Little Bighorn together. And that was this case right here. I mean, it could be nothing. I'm just letting you guys. I'm not telling you I'm finding anything. This is all potential information. So Kimberly Iron, who is missing from Montana, and she kind of went missing between her vacation between Montana and Las Vegas. Well, her middle name is Kimberly Bear Claw Iron. I'll read part of this article. Father pleads for help in finding daughter Kimberly Iron, who left Montana home in September. Kimberly Bear Claw Iron, 21, left her Billings, Montana home on September 22nd, 2020, leaving her 3 children behind with their grandparents in Hardin, Montana. She contacted her family from Las Vegas, Nevada, and from Oxnard, California, saying she was upset and needed money to get home. Kind of reminds me of Hannah's case. She last contacted her father, who lives on the Crow Indian Reservation, on October 6th, 2020, but no one has seen or heard from her since. The Bighorn, and there it is again, Bighorn. So you got Bear Claw, Bighorn, and Montana, and you could throw in Las Vegas if you want to. She's still missing, unsolved case. But I thought that was interesting. I don't remember that part, J Ray. I don't remember ever hearing Elvis Field's sister say that he liked to talk to young girls on the internet. Yeah, that's a good point, Charlotte. Maybe he is. I don't know. Lizzie says, I feel KK would have been legally connected by now. Well, it's definitely not because of any lack of trying. They definitely wanted to connect this. Remember, it took them 4 years just to announce the Anthony Shots information to the public, which, as we know, is tied to Keegan Klein. We know through what we learned in the trial that they spent millions of dollars chasing down those leads. They went as far as finding Tony Klein's Jeep, and they scrubbed that entire vehicle for DNA. They went as far as taking Keegan Klein out of prison into ISP custody along with Nick McClelland and Doug Carter, and literally taking him to the cemetery. And while Keegan Klein is at the cemetery with what he called the guys, remember, during his interview with the murder sheet, he said, "Oh, yeah, I spoke to the guys. They don't become the guys, for no reason. That means he spent some time with them." And come to find out he did. So we were right about that. And this isn't just Keegan Klein confessing to one of his creepy little gel mates, right? Like, oh yeah, I went in a red Jeep. And the only reason he's confessing at that time is because he had already officially confessed to law enforcement. They're searching the Wabash River. We know they spent over $1 million just on that search alone. And why? Because Keegan Klein said that his father mentioned throwing a phone and a blade in a river. Okay. So it's not just me thinking that Richard Allen and Anthony Shots are connected. It's the taxpayer dollars of Indiana over probably what now, maybe $3 or $4 million just on the Delphi case alone, including the trial cost. It's not just me. It's been the entire investigative team up until the arrest of Richard Allen. Right? In comes the lost tip. If anybody wants to chase down a conspiracy or target law enforcement and the investigative team and anybody involved, it would be through that lost tip. That's where the rules were broken, somewhere in there. But I think they felt justified in doing it, and I think they are. That's why I'm reluctant to even kind of shine light on that, because I feel like they did what they had to do, but it could be like a fruit of a poison tree kind of situation. Hey, what's up, Anna? I tried to research that possible hacking, but came up with nothing. I assume Shia refers to a branch of Islam. Yeah, that's what I found. Let me pull up my results. I ran it through an AI program to detect any ciphers, any coded messages, or anything like that. Any patterns, really. Let me see what I did with my notes. Okay, I think this is it. Okay. So this is what it kind of spit out at me. Likely refers to the Shia branch of Islam, which emerged long before the 14th century, though it gained prominence. Here, let me read this and then put this back up. We'll have this over here, and you guys can look at this. Okay. Which emerged long before the 14th century, though it gained prominence in various periods. No direct connection to the Little Bighorn National Monument, which commemorates a battle in 1876 in Montana. So there we go. There is a case of the missing woman. Her middle name is Bear Claw. She's from Montana and she lived in Bighorn County. So I don't know if that means anything. The mid 14th century, roughly 1350 CE. Historically, this was a time of the Black Death, the Hundred Years' War, and Mongol decline, but nothing ties it to Little Bighorn, which is centuries later. In quotations, caused the Little Bighorn National Monument in the past. The monument itself was established in the 20th century to mark the 1876 battle. The phrase in the past is redundant unless it's a clue. Which I thought it was, right? In the past. Little Bighorn County in the past, but I don't know how the Shia is tied to it. All right, caused the Little Bighorn National Monument in the past. The monument itself was established in the 20th century to mark the 1876 battle. The phrase in the past is redundant unless it's a clue. So that's what I thought. The sentence doesn't hold up historically or grammatically, so it might be a cryptogram or an anagram. Let's try rearranging or interpreting it. One possibility is a typo or mistranslation with the Shia. Could be a stand in for Sioux, a tribe involved in the Little Bighorn battle. That's what I thought as well. But mid 14th century still doesn't fit unless it's a deliberate red herring. Another angle, the phrase has 19 words. If mid 14th is one word, the Battle of Little Bighorn was on June 25th through the 26th in 1876. No clear numerical code jumps out. For example, 14th century verse 1876. Anagram attempt. Rearranging the Shia the mid 14th century caused yields no clear phrase matching Little Bighorn, but it's possible we could be missing a cipher. And then I have a whole bunch more that goes on here. Um, simple shift cipher moves each letter by a fixed number, testing a shift of 3, common in basic examples. I didn't find anything there. Reverse text, writing it backwards, doesn't reveal a message. Rearranging all letters, 71 characters, into a new sentence is impractical without a clue. And smaller chunks, for example, the Shia, doesn't yield relevant phrases like Sioux War. Substitution cipher. Without a key, let's hypothesize Shia encodes as Sioux. Nothing found. Um, So yeah, they didn't find anything. The old bear claw. But I did find it interesting that when I heard the information about bear claw, for whatever reason, Richard Allen mentioned bear claw. And yes, I had it confused because at one point I had it written down. But anyway, why did he say that? It was very random. Bear claw, and it was they included it as part of his confessions. He was talking about molesting these kids, being molested by his grandparents, and then bear claw, and then some other random things. But when I read that, instantly I remembered this. Why? I feel like that's my intuition telling me something. I don't know what it means. I maybe it's nothing. If the word was Sue rather than Shia, there could be some sense. Maybe it was a talk to text thing. That's what I was chopping it up to when I originally looked into it. I was like, the Shia means Sue, but maybe not. Maybe it's like some kind of a coded message. I always wondered if it was maybe the killer or one of the killers who still had access to Libby's devices. Either way, it's very interesting. Let's see. What else did I find today? So I think this is called Everybody Wiki. I'm not really familiar with this. Maybe you guys are. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, I think this was something posted by Keegan Klein in 2018. There's no real significance to it. I just thought it was interesting and funny to read. It was obviously written by Keegan Klein. He must be using these in his catfishing. Like, hey, what's your name? Oh, well, my real name is Keegan Klein. Oh yeah, what do you do? Oh, I'm a musician. I'm a professional songwriter, musician. As a matter of fact, I'm on tour. And then they go and look him up, right? And he wants them to read this. Like, oh, you don't believe me? Go look it up. So he's creating this online persona that he can actually back up. This is how he spends most of his time. It's extremely intricate. The depths that he has traveled to create this persona that Keegan Klein is some kind of a musician on tour, and he works with famous and successful musicians. This guy is much more capable than people are giving him credit for. So let me read this. Keegan Anthony Klein, born May 27th, 1994, is the lead vocalist and guitar player of pop punk band Keegan Klein, a former live fill-in lead singer of the band Palais Royale. He is an inspiring musician living in Las Vegas and Indiana, currently writing his album Vegas, which is scheduled to drop worldwide, streaming March 13th. There's that date, 13, March 13th, 2020, under Gold Bar USA. He is managed by Artery Foundation. Just look at the things that he's picking out. The 13th, Artery. He got an offer while playing poker in Las Vegas for a job with Red Bull. Signed band Beartooth. Beartooth. He went on tour with them for 2 months and decided, oh, he just decided to join them for the Vans Warp Tour. You know what, guys? I will join you for that Warp Tour. In 2015, he also worked on the Vans Warped Tour 2017 and 2018. He then got a gig with Amorosa for a fall tour. He has worked with the following bands: Silverstein, Taking Back Sunday, The Used, Panic at the Disco, Saves the Day, Paramore, Hawthorne Heights, Senses Fail, We the Kings, Say Anything, Boys Like Girls, Under Oath, Mayday Parade, The Starting Line, and Cute is What We Aim For. Before his big break, you guys, he was a blackjack dealer. Ooh, professional poker player. And he co-owned a marijuana delivery service in Las Vegas. Damn, that motherfucker's hustling. He currently has a marketing company called Klein Co. He is set to go on tour late 2020 to kick off his album release and has scheduled with Dizzy Wright in Paris Shadows. Like, shut the fuck up. Kirby David Wilson says DB, former roommate, showed me pictures of Anthony shots on two different laptops. Yeah, who's DB? BD and DB. Anna says mid 14th century, roughly 1350 CE, Black Death was ravaging the old world. Yeah, I was looking at that too. The Black Death. So, other than Field's garbage confession, there is no evidence pointing to Odinist. Well, I mean, you have the whole Brad Holder. You have the Brad Holder angle, but he has an alibi. So you'd have to break his alibi. For example, is he on video at the gym, or do they just have documentation of him kind of scanning in? Because anybody can scan in. You don't have it's not the mark of the beast where it's in your flesh. Anybody could carry it. Once you scan it, it's going to be registered to whoever it belongs to, not you. So I guess the question is, do they have him on video going to the gym, or do they have him leaving work and going, I don't know, to some kind of ritual? But as of right now, he has a solid alibi. Not to mention his timeline is pretty tight. Even if you break his alibi, mid 14th century, 14-year-old girl. Heck, that's what I'm trying to figure it out. It doesn't make sense. These are the things that I was thinking. 14. But yeah, that was a strange case. The one that I found. Her name being Bear Claw. Kimberly Bear Claw Iron. So in her story, you have Las Vegas, right? She went missing in Las Vegas. And she went missing, I believe, while Keegan Klein was still living there. No, I don't think so. This here says September 22nd, 2020. Well, that's when she left her home. So she's from Montana, Bighorn County, and her middle name is Bearclaw, and she went missing while visiting Las Vegas. Hmm. Well, thanks, Kirby. Thanks for dropping the knowledge and bouncing. BG is DB, but yet you won't tell anybody who DB is. A lot of good that does. Bunch of emo bands. So apparently, Keegan Klein's pretty emo. Yeah, I think so. He talked about that during his interview with law enforcement. He said he would deliver mostly to old people. He said they would travel to California. And that's interesting. The story of Bear Claw, who went missing from Montana, her father received phone calls from Oxnard, California, from her on speakerphone. What's up, Vegas Sleuth? I think it was Richard Allen by himself. He could have made another fake name and catfished the girls to the trail. So why is he? Why do you think he's catfishing though? If you don't think he's connected to Anthony Shots, why is he catfishing? If you think there's a catfish angle, don't you? Wouldn't you assume that it's because of the Anthony Shots account? Just curious. DB is Dwayne Brown. Dun dun dun. Rabbits out the hat. Who is this Dwayne Brown you speak of? Exactly, Christine. I mean, he has gone through lengths to create this online character, Keegan Klein, right? Kirby says, set up. V, good to see you. KK is the jack of all idiots. Well, apparently, while he was playing poker professionally, he was approached and asked to be a dealer. Maybe I can find time while I'm on my warp tour. And I'm working on my album titled Artery. Or no, under Artery Records. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. Danny B. I'm not BG. That's rude. Oh yeah, you are technically DB. Well, apparently it's not Danny, it's Dwayne Brown. Who is this Dwayne Brown you speak of? Yeah, you don't get more pathological than that. I may not be Anthony Schatz, but my real name is Keegan Klein. Google me. When in doubt, V, when in doubt. Good question, Karen. All right, we're all pretty much caught up on the chat. So think about this, guys. If anything or any corruption exists from law enforcement, it absolutely has to do with that lost tip. And we know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, but I'm convinced the name Richard Allen, they received that information from Keegan Klein. Whether he gave it to them directly, whether it was included in a text message or in a phone call, however they obtained the name Richard Allen, it was done illegally. Therefore, they couldn't use it. Like we can't tell them how we got this name. And we used to hear all kinds of crazy rumors. Remember that they put Keegan Klein up in a hotel. Witnesses saw him at the hotel and he had like bottles of champagne and shit. And that he was being escorted by law enforcement. I don't know how much of that is true, but what's very interesting is the person who released that information to the public. Now tell me this isn't a coincidence. The same person who came out publicly releasing that information about Keegan Klein being let out for the day, turns out he did go into ISP custody right around that time. The same person who released that information to the public, miraculously, Rosie, just some out of some mistake of his, a little slip of his little chubby finger or whatever, fat fingers, sends the entire discovery to this person. I think what's his name? I want to say Woodhouse, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's Brandon Woodhouse. Correct me. Somebody will know in the chat. So the same guy that's coming out saying, "Hey, look, Keegan Klein was let out of jail, and they let him go to a hotel with his girlfriend, and he had champagne. The cops were there, and everything." So the same guy, just out of a coinky dink, receives the entire discovery from Brad and Andy. I think it was Brad who took the responsibility for that. Bradley Rosie. Oh, my bad. I accidentally sent the entire discovery to some random YouTuber who has I think like 500 subscribers. A local to Indiana, multiple drug charges, seems to know a lot. Now, I don't know if you can go into a court of law and say, yeah, we took Keegan Klein out of prison. We put him in a hotel. We let him sleep with his girlfriend. We gave him champagne. And then he finally told us who was responsible for killing Abby and Libby. Be kind of hard to use that information at a trial, I think. At that point, you would be hoping for Richard Allen to kind of tie it all together, right? We've been building this case against Anthony Schatz and the Kleins for 6 years, right? Now all we need is Richard Allen to kind of fill in these pieces. And then we can present to the world the full story. Well, you can't do that if you obtained Richard Allen's name illegally And you can't do that unless you actually have factual information and evidence to tie Richard Allen and Anthony Shots together. You can't go into a court of law and say, yeah, this entire time we believe that this is what was going on. Okay, well, can you prove it? No. Okay, well, then how do we know what you're saying about your client is true? It diminishes the case against Richard Allen. Well, how do they remedy that? They just going to let Richard Allen go and get rid of his gun now that the 40 caliber information is being released? Then where would they be? So how do they use this information that was obtained illegally and still have probable cause to bring Richard Allen back up before it's too late? Well, the answer to that riddle is the lost tip. Right? They're not going to be scrutinized for overlooking Richard Allen. We just simply, it was a clerical error. He was able to slip under the radar. It was the FBI's fault. Kathy Shank's like, oh, well, one day it was just in my drawer. Like, what? So you're telling me you take Keegan Klein into ISP custody, you take him to the cemetery, he tells you exactly what happened. He told you who was involved, and then you take him to some hotel with his girlfriend and give him champagne, spend $1 million on a Wabash River search, only to be caught in a catch-22 scenario? Like, oh shit, we have this name. There's nothing we can do about it. We've obtained it illegally. What's up, Riot? What do we do? How do we preserve what we have? How do we go after Richard Allen? We have podcasters going live talking about a 40 caliber bullet. That's the information that we've kept secret this entire time. It's now about to become mainstream. We finally have Keegan Klein confessing and giving us all the details that we need with zero physical evidence. What the hell are we going to do? Because if Richard Allen catches wind that we have a bullet that was left at the crime scene, he's going to get rid of that gun. If he gets rid of the gun, we have no physical evidence, no nexus. It's kind of like Koberger, right? He's like, yeah, so what? My car was there at the crime scene and driving around. I never went in that house. You can't prove it. And there's no DNA in my car. Don't you think that if I just killed 4 people, there'd be DNA in my car? Well, if he just wouldn't have left that knife sheath, and if Richard Allen wouldn't have left that bullet, I think we would be dealing with unsolved cases right now. I think that ISP and the investigative team were under enough pressure and under such a time crunch, they didn't have a choice but to take that risk. And I think that they've had Richard Allen's name from the very beginning. They've had Richard Allen sitting on a table and the Kleins. And they're like, how are we not able to connect? How are we being outsmarted by these idiots? Well, if you look at Keegan Klein and what he's done online, he's not an idiot. He knows what he's doing. He knows how the paper trail works because he uses it to catfish young girls. He creates his own paper trail. He knows that's how his mind works. It's not because he's some genius. It's because he's been doing it for so long. He's getting good at it. There's a story of this man who used to call into fast food restaurants, and he would claim to be a law enforcement official, and he's on the phone with management, with corporate, and we believe that you're stealing money, is what they would tell him. And he would call hundreds and hundreds of McDonald's specifically, like every day, And eventually he got so good at it after he failed hundreds of times. Eventually he got so good at calling in and convincing these people that he was an actual law enforcement officer, person of power and position on the line with somebody that could basically fire this individual. And he would get the management to literally strip search these employees and even sometimes sexually assault them. And it would never even register. It's not because this guy's some genius, it's because of trial and error. He called, he said, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to try this next time. Made another call. Okay, I got a little further with this call. Let me go ahead and call this restaurant. Man, I'm getting better at this. And then eventually he has a manager strip searching a young girl and sexually assaulting her. And they're not even questioning it. That's what Keegan Klein did. He did it so much that he got good at it. What's up, Darkside? And usually they wouldn't take him out unless they were convinced he was telling the truth in some way, I'd think. Yeah, we're not talking about Reese Davis or somebody coming up to Reese Davis and say, hey, man, this is what really happened. I was involved in the Delphi murders. Or we had one of Keegan Klein's old cellmates, right? Came out and said, hey, Keegan Klein told me that him and his father were waiting in a red Jeep and they were part of the Delphi murders. Well, the only reason he was telling anybody at all is because he had already spoken with McClelland and the whole investigative team. Remember the boys, the guys? So, of course, he's going to go. That's why he started snitching while he was in jail. He's like, I already told the cops. I mean, I already got what I wanted. There's no reason for me to keep quiet now. What's up, Justin? Welcome in. All right. What do you guys think of my conspiracy theory? I mean, it makes sense, right? Everything going on with Keegan Klein, the frustration, law enforcement knowing damn well that Anthony Shots and Richard Allen are connected, but not able to prove it with actual evidence, but they know deep down in their heart it's connected. Well, these guys aren't as dumb as they look. They're not as dumb as they look. Darkseid said they did what they had to do. I think so. I think they had to do it. I think they had to. I don't know if they did what they had to do, but I think they thought they were doing what they had to do. Think about it. They could never tie Anthony Shots to Abby and Libby's case, but they tried to. They went on for years trying to because they knew it. They knew that it was connected. But if it's not proven, there's nothing you can do with that information. Every fiber of your being could tell you, like, hey, this is connected. Richard Allen and Anthony Shots and the Kleins, are absolutely connected. Well, when you're sitting in a courtroom and the jury goes, okay, well, show us how. They're going to be like, I don't know how, but you just have to take my word for it. It just doesn't work that way. So if you can't make the connection, you have to leave it behind and you have to go with the whole lone wolf scenario. Because if you don't, even if you tell them, hey, I'm almost 100% sure that they're connected, I just can't prove it. One day we might be able to. even that will diminish the case against Richard Allen. Because if you suggest others were involved, then the defense team's going to exploit that. And that's why they had that weird back and forth. Early on, when they arrested Richard Allen, Nick McClellan wouldn't shut up about other people being involved. And I know some people say, oh, well, every investigation they say that. This was different. We now know that he was interviewing Keegan Klein and he was doing an official confession, an official statement. That's different. We know why he thought others were involved. He was just hoping that Richard Allen was going to come forward and be like, hey, well, these are all the missing pieces. You guys have everything. You just don't have the thread that's connecting everything. I can give that to you. And I think that's what they were waiting on. They had Richard Allen from the beginning. They had all of this stuff on the Kleins, and they were hoping to hand it to the Indiana public and to the victims' families on a platter. Like, look, we have it all. We tied it all together. But it just did not work that way. Who are you talking to, Kirby? Are you talking about my channel? The channel that you're in? The channel that you're participating in? Are you talking about that channel? What's up, Sparky? That was some creepy, shady stuff, Sleuth. Still gives me chills. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. If you actually do like a deep dive on what Keegan Klein was doing online, he had an Anthony shot set up on every social media platform. And it all said the same thing. You know, young, successful, Alaska, Indiana, traveling to New York to LA, picture of an airplane. It was all the same because that's what worked. After all of his experience, after all of his catfishing, all of his hacking, all of his learning how to exploit young girls online, that was the answer. If you needed a catfish consultant, Keegan Klein would come to you and show you Anthony shots. This is what all of my investigative work, this is what I've discovered in the catfishing world. The Anthony Shots profile. Young, handsome, and successful. Necessary Evil says it's pretty common to take a suspect. Yeah, but was he a suspect? We've always been told that he wasn't a suspect. I can see them taking Richard Allen, somebody that's arrested for the crime, to the crime scene so that he could explain it, right? Oh, you want to confess? Well, come on, let's go. You're the suspect. But Keegan Klein, that's, we're not comparing apples to apples. That's apples and oranges. Keegan Klein, he hasn't been charged in that case or even, labeled a suspect. Out you go, youngster. Anna says it's possible KK had information on other crimes, thus the Wabash River search. The public has assumed that search was related to Delphi. It may not have been. Well, according to what we learned in trial, it was. It was absolutely for Delphi, and it had everything to do with what Keegan Klein had stated, with a cell phone and a blade being tossed into the river. Thanks, Sparky. Yeah, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Karen says, I think KK is sitting in prison laughing at us, knowing he knows what exactly happened. Yeah. Playing that cat and mouse, using superficial charm. Thank you, Alex, for the super sticker. Mark and Alex, you guys rock. Thank you. Dark side. For them to search for 5 weeks, there must have been something Kagan said they believed or he proved somehow. I bet they were pissed off. Lucky he didn't 500 years for that stunt, honestly. Well, the thing about Keegan Klein is he would have to be promised immunity or something because if he came out and said, "Yeah, I catfished these girls, I'm a sick pedophile, and then I had something to do with their murders," I mean, that might be grounds for like the death penalty or something. You can get put to death for that, I think. Dan Doofus. Well, that's another name, right? What's going on with Dan Doolin? During trial, he's like, I don't even remember any of that. I don't even remember meeting with this guy. I feel like the core investigative team took that information and said, this is our guy right here. We have to find out a way to prove it. Him and Keegan Klein. Somehow these two were working together. And they failed. They failed at connecting it. And then people aren't giving them any credit for hiding it, creating alibis. I mean, they still struggle to connect Richard Allen with his phone. Where was his phone? Right? They were all doing something to create an alibi. The only reason Richard Allen even came forward is because people saw him. And I don't even think he was worried about the young girls. I think it was Betsy Blair, where he took his face mask down and probably turned around smoking a cigarette, and there's this woman looking right at him. He's like, well, oh shit, that changes everything. If I wasn't addicted to cigarettes, I wouldn't even be worried about it. But she looked right at me. I had to have a cigarette. So now that changes all my plans. Welcome in, Love Bomb. I still wonder what 10 years in Alaska means from TK's voicemail. Yeah, what is that? I feel like 10 years in Alaska, I feel like that was all part of the catfishing thing. Like they catfish girls, they eventually give them their real number and things like that. Like, hey, you can call my number, it's real. Oh, sorry, I didn't answer. But when it goes to the voicemail, it's like 10 years in Alaska or whatever. It's all part of like a backstory, I feel. I feel like they were using this Anthony Shots account to get photos of young girls. And I don't think it was just Keegan. But in order to sell it, you have to be convincing. How do you convince? You produce receipts. If you don't have receipts, you fabricate them. Like a con artist, basically. What's going on, Brett? Thank you, Sparky. We got a scrub report. You don't want to be a scrub. Hit the thumbs up. It's right there. It's right there. Just click it. What's going on, Barb? Dan wasn't the one who lost the vital info. Yeah, I don't think anybody was saying Dan lost it. He did what he was supposed to do, but he didn't, he wasn't able to tie it all together. That's why people give Dan a hard time. I just found it interesting that he didn't even remember any of it. When he was questioned about it, he's like, no, I don't even remember really interviewing Alan. Yep, 10 days before the crime, Sparky, Libby factory reset her phone. Makes you wonder what that was all about. And then you had Anthony Shots was on Yubo too, which is a live streaming platform. Makes you wonder what that was all about. All right, here's a couple of other cases involving Yubo. See, Clayton Colburn case, February 2020 out of Florida. Clayton Colburn, a 28-year-old from Land O'Lakes, Florida, was arrested after traveling nearly 100 miles to meet a 13-year-old girl he connected with on Yubo. So there you have a 13-year-old girl connected with on Yubo. Posing as a 16-year-old named Jason, Colburn arranged two meetups with the victim. Authorities reported he used the app to initiate contact, later moving communication to other platforms. Where there's like a there's like a manual for this. The the police department warned parents about Yubo's risks following this incident. The outcome: Colborn Colborn faced charges of lewd and lascivious battery. I don't think I'm pronouncing that word correctly. And obscene communication traveling to meet a minor after using a computer to lure a child. Then you have another case, Michael Pennington, February of 2019, Kentucky and Indiana. Remember the Stevenson case? That was out of Kentucky and somehow was said to be connected to Delphi. Michael Pennington, 26, allegedly exploited a 12-year-old girl from Kenton County, Kentucky, whom he met on Yubo. Initially claiming to be 13, then 17, he admitted his real age after soliciting explicit images from her between November of 2008 and 2009. His real name is Joshua Nolan Pennington. This guy here. So his real full name is Joshua Nolan Pennington. He's 26. A reading man is behind bars after his home was raided by federal agents this week. Joshua Nolan Pennington, 26, was trying to meet a 12-year-old girl he lured online. Kenton County Police said the FBI showed up at his home with a search warrant accusing him of sexual exploitation of a minor. The FBI alerted Kenton County Police to their investigation, one they said may involve the 12-year-old girl from the area. Kenton County Police have a unit that specializes in internet crimes against children. The girl's family also was notified, and an interview took place. Authorities said the girl had been in contact with Pennington November 21st through January. They reportedly met through an app called Yubo. The two also corresponded via Snapchat and Facebook Messenger. Starting to see a pattern here. Yubo, Snapchat, Facebook, or Instagram, right? According to the FBI, told the girl he was 13 at first, then he told her he was 17. Finally, he admitted he was 26. The girl exposed her private parts and sent pictures to the suspect, according to authorities. The FBI agent wrote in the warrant that Pennington was arrested in Indiana for unlawful sexual contact with a juvenile. He is currently on bond from a case in Tippecanoe, Indiana. The complaint states Pennington has been known to travel to other locations to have unlawful sexual contact with minors. Pedophiles will sometimes have an obsession with children 12 years of age or younger, according to Dr. Ed Connor, a licensed psychologist who works with sex offenders. And the obsession can become so powerful that they feel they can't control it, he said. They will do almost anything, go through great lengths to try and find a child who will engage in any type of sexual behavior that they desire. Interesting. I think so necessary. I think you're right. The only problem with that is usually when you're committing, let's say, a homicide or a very serious crime and you have other people involved, usually all of them will need to participate equally to ensure nobody else is going to kind of snitch, right? If you snitch on me, you're basically snitching on yourself. You can't make a deal when we're all in this equally, right? Like, what are you going to do? Make a deal against yourself? None of your business is sorry, but I don't think it's genius to figure out the formula of women being attracted to in shape. Well, it's not that. It's convincing them that that's you, right? Hopefully, you're not just going to be like, oh, who's this good looking, young, successful guy from Alaska? I don't think anybody's just going to fall for that. I don't even think Abby and Libby. But after time, you get so good at it, it's more about your timing. Maybe answering questions proactively before they even have an opportunity. You just kind of go through this series of events that is just extremely convincing for them. It's like a pattern that you've come up with. Like, oh, here's this. Go check me out here. Before they even have a chance to even go do their own investigation or be suspicious of you, you've already, you have every angle covered. So it's not, it seems as simple as just like, oh, hey, look, I'm a handsome guy named Anthony Schatz. You're going to take off your clothes for me. I don't think it's that simple. I think that's how Keegan Klein started, realizing that, hey, it's not that simple. Like, I need to have a whole backstory. I need to have receipts. I need to be very convincing. That's where the Emily Ann, I think, comes in. At first, it's not this cute, successful, aggressive, like, hey, I get any girl I want. At first, it's this Emily Ann, the sweet, innocent 13-year-old girl who is actually Keegan Klein. But once you become friends with Emily Ann, then she begins to talk about this Anthony Schatz guy, or, my brother Anthony Schatz, or my friend Anthony Schatz. Like, he's this really successful guy. So this is what I'm talking about. I know it doesn't take a genius to figure that part out, but it's all the other nuance. It's all the other things that he's doing to be successful, right? He's going through great lengths. Like, hey, I'm your best friend. I'm Emily Ann. You should go talk to my brother Keegan or my dad, Keegan. He's a really nice guy. Since you're into older guys, right? We've known each other long enough. I know that that's your thing. You're into older guys, right? You should go talk to my older brother. He's a great guy. And slowly but surely, you know, Keegan has convinced his new 13-year-old friend who thinks that she's talking to another 13-year-old named Emily Ann. He has now convinced her to go and communicate with the older brother, Anthony Schatz, or Keegan Klein, or Tony, whoever is using the account at that time. They always get them to go to secondary platforms like maybe Yubo, Skype, something like that, Snapchat. Welcome in, Bell Mayhem. Yep, that's true. Tinder for teens. You could actually swipe, I believe. We did a live stream on it a way back. Also, I think in some way Yubo was connected with Snapchat. And if you had both of them, you can use them in unison. And Yubo already had the tracking information. So if you both had Yubo and Snapchat, I believe you were still able to track your friends' movements. If you had friends on both Yubo and Snapchat simultaneously, I believe you could use the Find Me location or Find Me option. What's up, Rachel? But I think that's going to do it for today, guys. We'll be going live a few times throughout the day. There's a few more topics that I want to discuss. I was going to present them all in one live stream, but I didn't. I feel like that can be confusing. So we'll kind of separate it. I'm sure in a couple of hours you'll see me live again. So keep a lookout for that notification, and I'll see you guys soon. Welcome in for, and you guys take care. Special thanks again to Mark and Alex. Thank you guys for sponsoring today's live stream. You guys rock. Take care, guys. I'll see you again real soon. Peace.